All right, so are you ready to really untangle this whole coronavirus story?
It's a wild one for sure.
Yeah, it is. And today we are going deep
Okay.
using this WebMD article
Okay.
called Coronavirus History. How did coronavirus start?
Sound good.
And by the end of this,
Yeah.
you will have a solid grasp on how this virus came to be.
Fascinating stuff.
What we've learned along the way,
Yeah.
all that good stuff.
Looking forward to it.
So to kick things off, let's go back to basics.
Okay.
What exactly are coronaviruses? I know we hear the word all the time, but
Right.
what does it actually mean?
So they're actually a huge family of viruses,
Okay.
and you've probably encountered some of them already.
Okay.
You know, the common cold.
Uh-huh.
Yep, sometimes that's a coronavirus.
Oh, really?
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Only 7 types of coronaviruses are known to infect humans
Wow.
out of all the coronaviruses out here.
Okay.
And there are a lot.
I bet.
Only a tiny fraction have made the jump to us.
Only 7.
It's kind of surprising.
Is it?
Yeah. Why haven't more crossed over?
That's a question that keeps researchers busy.
I bet.
It's likely a combination of factors.
Okay.
The virus's ability to bind to human cells,
Uh-huh.
our immune responses,
Right.
even things like our behavior and how we interact with animals.
So it's complex.
It is.
So we've got these viruses, some harmless, some not.
Right.
And then COVID-19 enters the scene,
Yeah.
causing a global pandemic.
Global pandemic.
How did this particular coronavirus come to be?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the article lays out 2 main hypotheses.
Okay.
You've got the animal exposure theory,
Right.
where the virus jumps from an animal to a human,
Uh-huh.
and then you've got the lab leak theory.
I've heard a lot about both of those.
Yeah, me too.
Is there any conclusive evidence to support either one?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's still an open investigation.
Right.
And while some folks lean towards one theory or the other,
Uh-huh.
there's no definitive proof.
What we do know from intelligence reports
Okay.
is that this virus wasn't engineered as a bioweapon.
Okay, so not a bioweapon. That's good to know.
Yeah.
But the lab leak idea is still on the table.
It's a possibility.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that suspicion doesn't equal fact.
Right.
More research is needed to say for sure.
And it's really important to be careful about jumping to conclusions,
Absolutely.
especially when it comes to blaming specific groups of people.
Right.
We saw a lot of that directed at Asian communities when COVID-19 first emerged.
Yeah. It was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Viruses can emerge anywhere.
Right.
And assigning blame based on geography or ethnicity is not only scientifically inaccurate, but also fuels harmful stereotypes.
Yeah, for sure.
We've seen this before.
Right.
Ebola originated in Africa.
Right.
Zika in South America.
Uh-huh.
The list goes on.
It's a good reminder that clear and accurate information is crucial,
Very much so.
especially during a health crisis. Speaking of which, let's talk about the naming of this virus.
Okay.
Where did the term COVID-19 even come from?
Let me think. It's actually shortened form of 2019 novel coronavirus.
Oh, okay.
CO for corona,
Uh-huh.
C for virus,
All right.
D for disease.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Gotcha.
The actual virus itself is called SARS-CoV-2,
Wait,
which stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2.
2 different names.
Yeah,
Why is that?
it's about precision.
Okay.
Scientists noticed that SARS-CoV-2 had a similar structure to the virus that caused the 2003 SARS outbreak.
Oh, right.
Remember those crown-like spikes we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
So the name reflects that genetic link.
I see.
COVID-19, on the other hand, refers to the disease caused by this specific virus.
So using the right terms is important.
Yeah,
And it's just as important to avoid terms like Wuhan flu or Chinese flu, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
those terms are inaccurate and perpetuate harmful stereotypes.
Right.
It's also not accurate to call it the flu, as it's not caused by an influenza virus.
Got it. Okay, so let's zoom in on the timeline.
Okay.
When did COVID-19 first appear?
The first signs were subtle,
Okay.
appearing in November 2019.
Wow, so early.
By December 2019,
Okay.
we saw a larger cluster of cases in Wuhan, China.
Wuhan.
Initially, the suspicion was that the virus jumped from animals to humans at a wet market in Wuhan.
Wet market.
Yeah.
Paint a picture for me.
Sure.
What exactly is that?
Imagine a bustling open-air market,
Okay.
a sensory overload of sights, sounds, and smells.
Right.
You've got fresh produce,
Uh-huh.
meat,
Uh-huh.
and often live animals, all in close proximity.
So lots of stuff all together.
It's a vibrant scene,
Okay.
but also creates an environment where viruses can potentially jump between species.
I see, so a potential hotbed for viral transmission.
Exactly.
But didn't the story change a bit as we learned more about COVID-19?
It did.
Okay.
As the virus spread within China and internationally, it became clear that many infected individuals had no direct contact with animals.
Oh.
That's when the alarm bells really started ringing.
Right.
It meant the virus could easily spread through human-to-human contact, which, of course, is a recipe for a rapid outbreak.
And that ultimately led to the pandemic declaration.
Exactly.
Wow.
On March 11, 2020,
Okay.
the World Health Organization officially declared COVID-19 a pandemic,
Big day.
recognizing the global threat and the urgent need for a coordinated response.
So we've covered the origins of COVID-19,
Yeah.
the naming conventions,
Right.
and the timeline.
Yeah.
But this isn't our first encounter with a coronavirus, is it?
You're right.
What can we learn from past encounters with these viruses?
You're right. COVID-19 is not our first rodeo with coronaviruses. To understand the bigger picture,
Okay.
we need to delve into the history of coronaviruses and their impact on humans.
I'm ready.
That's where things get even more interesting.
All right, lead the way. Let's dive into that history in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
Stay tuned.
All right. Welcome back.
Okay, so we were just about to take a trip back in time
Oh, yeah.
to explore the history of coronaviruses
Right.
before COVID-19.
Before COVID.
It's wild to think about how long these viruses have been around.
It is.
So when did we first encounter a coronavirus?
Okay.
Spill the historical tea.
All right, so get ready for this.
Okay.
1965.
Wow.
That's when the first human coronavirus was officially identified.
1965.
Yeah.
That's way before I was born.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
What were the symptoms like back then? Did it cause anything serious?
Thankfully, nothing too severe.
Okay.
Mostly common cold-like symptom.
Okay, so nothing too crazy.
But later that decade,
Okay.
researchers started uncovering a bunch of similar viruses in both humans and the animals.
Ooh, wow.
They noticed that they all had these distinctive crown-like spikes
Right.
when viewed under a microscope,
Okay.
hence the name coronavirus.
I see. So we've known about these viruses for decades. And as you mentioned earlier,
Right.
only 7 can infect humans.
As far as we know.
Aside from the common cold and COVID-19,
Uh-huh.
are there any other notable coronaviruses that have caused problems for us?
2 words.
Okay.
SARS
Okay.
and MERS.
Ooh, SARS. That brings back memories.
Does it?
Not necessarily good ones.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a pretty big outbreak in the early 2000s?
You're right on the money.
Okay.
The SARS outbreak started in southern China in 2002,
Okay.
and it spread like wildfire,
Wow.
hitting 28 countries
Jeez.
and infecting over 8,000 people.
That sounds terrifying.
It was.
How bad did it get?
It was a significant outbreak
Okay.
with a lot of fear and uncertainty, not unlike what we saw with COVID-19.
Right.
Sadly, 774 people died during that outbreak.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was a tough time.
What were the symptoms of SARS?
Very similar to COVID-19 in many ways.
Okay.
Fever,
Okay.
headache,
Uh-huh.
and respiratory problems like coughing and shortness of breath.
So scary stuff.
Yeah,
So SARS was a real wake-up call
it was.
about the potential danger of coronaviruses.
For sure.
What about MERS?
Right.
What's the story?
Okay, so MERS,
Uh-huh.
or Middle East Respiratory Syndrome,
Okay.
first appeared in Saudi Arabia in 2012.
2012.
It's caused by a coronavirus called MERS-CoV.
MERS-CoV.
And camels are thought to be the primary source.
Camels.
Camels.
Oh, now that's a twist.
Yeah, a little unexpected.
So is MERS as widespread as SARS?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Almost all of the MERS cases have been concentrated in the Middle East.
Okay, so it was more contained.
It was.
Interesting.
It's less contagious than SARS,
Okay.
but carries a higher fatality rate.
Whoa.
Less contagious,
Yeah.
but more deadly.
That's a scary combination.
It is a bit.
What kinds of symptoms does MERS cause?
Like SARS and COVID-19.
Okay.
MERS can cause respiratory problems,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also lead to kidney failure.
Kidney failure.
Yeah,
That's serious.
which is a very serious complication.
So we've got SARS in the early 2000s,
Right.
MERS in 2012,
Wow.
and then boom, COVID-19 in 2019.
Yeah, it seems like they keep popping up.
It seems like these viruses have a way of appearing when we least expect them.
You're right.
It makes you a little nervous.
It does.
And it really underscores how important ongoing surveillance and research are.
Absolutely.
Learning from these past outbreaks can help us prepare for potential future ones.
Definitely.
Makes sense. It's like each outbreak teaches us something new.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get better at responding each time.
That's the hope.
It's about understanding the patterns,
Right.
the ways these viruses evolve and spread. We need to stay ahead of the game if we want to protect ourselves.
Absolutely.
Speaking of staying ahead of the game,
Yeah,
we've talked a lot about these past outbreaks.
we have.
But what about the future?
That's a good question.
What lessons can we learn to be better prepared,
Yeah,
knowing what we know now?
that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's what we'll dive into in part 3.
All right, I'm ready to hear it.
Okay.
Let's move on to the final part of our deep dive
Sounds good.
and explore those lessons for the future. So we've covered a lot of ground
Well, yeah.
from the very first human coronavirus discovered
Way back when.
back in 1965
Yeah.
to those more recent outbreaks like SARS and MERS.
Right.
And it makes you wonder,
What's next?
what the future holds.
Right.
What can we learn from all of this to be better prepared for whatever comes next?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And it's one that scientists and public health experts are constantly grappling with.
I bet.
One thing is clear, though.
Okay.
We can't afford to be caught off guard again.
Right. We need to be
Proactive.
proactive, not reactive.
Exactly.
But where do we even start? What are some concrete steps we can take?
So one of the most crucial things
Okay.
is having really strong surveillance systems in place.
Okay.
It's like having a global early warning system.
Grease for infectious diseases.
Gotcha.
We need to be able to detect new viruses quickly,
Uh-huh.
ideally before they even have a chance to spread widely.
So kind of like a network of sensors,
Yeah.
constantly monitoring
Monitoring.
and anything unusual.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
And these systems need to be sensitive enough
Right.
to pick up on subtle signals.
Okay.
A cluster of unusual illnesses here,
Uh-huh.
an unexpected spike in hospital admissions there.
So it's all about the data.
It is.
Early detection is key.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The sooner we know something is up,
Right.
the better chance we have of containing it.
Exactly.
What else can we do to be more prepared?
Well, research is absolutely vital.
Research, okay.
We need to invest in understanding how these viruses evolve,
Right.
how they jump from animals to humans,
Yeah.
and how to develop effective vaccines and treatments.
So it's a two-pronged approach, a strong defense to stop outbreaks from happening in the first place, and a strong offense to fight back if they do occur.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks.
And we can't forget about public health infrastructure.
Public health infrastructure.
Okay, this means having well-equipped hospitals,
Okay.
trained healthcare professionals, and clear communication channels
Right.
to keep the public informed.
Communication is so important,
It is.
especially during a crisis.
Absolutely.
We saw with COVID-19 how quickly misinformation and confusion can spread,
Yeah, it was a mess.
and that can really undermine efforts to control an outbreak.
Who can?
Yeah.
Clear, accurate, and timely information from trusted sources is essential.
For sure.
People need to know what's happening,
Right.
what steps they can take to protect themselves, and what resources are available to them.
So we've got surveillance,
Got
research, public health infrastructure, and communication.
Yep.
Anything else we need to add to our preparedness toolkit?
One more thing,
Okay.
and it's a big one. International collaboration.
Woo! International collaboration.
Infectious diseases don't respect borders.
That's true.
So we need to work together as a global community
I like it.
to share information,
Mm-hmm.
coordinate responses,
Okay.
and support countries that may be struggling.
That's so true. We saw with COVID-19 how interconnected we all are.
We did.
What happens in one part of the world can quickly impact the rest of us.
Exactly. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And by working together, we can leverage our collective knowledge and resources to build a more resilient world.
So to sum it all up,
Yeah.
being prepared for future outbreaks requires a multifaceted approach.
It does.
Robust surveillance,
Yep.
ongoing research,
Mm-hmm.
strong public health infrastructure,
Right.
clear communication,
Yes.
and international collaboration.
It's a tall order,
It is a lot to tackle,
for sure.
but it's clear that we can't afford to be complacent.
Absolutely not.
And it's not just about governments and public health officials.
Right. We all have a role to play.
We do.
Staying informed, following public health guidance,
Yes.
advocating for better preparedness.
Right?
These are all things we can do to make a difference.
Absolutely.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the history of coronaviruses,
Right.
I want to leave our listeners with this.
Okay, shoot.
The history of these viruses, much like the history of humanity itself, is a story of constant adaptation.
Interesting.
We learn, we evolve,
We do.
we find new ways to protect ourselves.
Right.
And while there will undoubtedly be challenges ahead,
I'm sure there will be.
we can face them with greater knowledge, resilience, and a shared commitment to safeguarding global health.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay informed.
Stay informed.
And stay well.
And stay well, everyone.